Yes, I lost my head last night. Kept on till I made you cry. Walked out with my stubborn pride.
Well, my name is Demetria Newton. I'm one of 3 representatives for Yellow Elder, the winning team. I'm also the captain for Yellow Elder. Our moot for this competition is, should capital punishment be abolished? Basically, we are the winning team. We have more reasons to prove our opposition to be true. And Ponciana, as always, second place, Hibiscus, last.
Oh, don't wanna hurt you, I don't wanna leave. Just wanna be with you. Man, after living life lonely so long, finally found the love of my life.
I'm ready to skipping out the north and side. I'm the leading captain for Ponciana House, and we are the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme, and we are going to take the leadership role in this speech competition.
If there's another chance, baby.
These girls are talking, but they can beat me. Hi, my name is Eden Adriana Raquel Boleg. I am in the 10th grade. I am the captain of Hibiscus, and we are planning to win.
All this love I have inside, wanna love you till the day I die. I won't be satisfied, baby, till you in my arms again. So let me hold.
At this time, we will pause.
We're so proud of, and today we celebrate, oh God, those things that you've entrusted, oh God, to us. And Father, our God, we ask that your divine presence will preside over this competition. And God, we recognize that some of them may be fearful, but God, you have not given them a spirit of fear, but last year we would leave rejoicing, saying that we were glad to have been a part of the address.
Please put your hand.
Mr. Harcourt Davis, our district superintendent, Mr. Loxley Ford, our principal, Mrs. Teresa Curry, our vice principal, regarding officials, special invited guests, teachers and fellow students, we are so glad to be here today. Welcome to the 2006 Motel Speech Competition. This competition promises to be united. This competition promises to be exciting. This competition promises to be provocative. So sit back and prepare for what you think. Once again, I say thank you.
Students and all winners, a pleasant good morning. Good morning. I am pleased to bring you the rules for this morning's speech competition. Rule number 1. The speech competition is open to students of grades 10 to 12 only. Number 2. Each house team must consist of 3 members. Number 3. Each speaker is required to speak for 5 to 7 minutes. Number 4, the following penalties will be entered. Up to 30 seconds over the allotted time, no penalty. Up to 30 seconds and up to 1 minute, a loss of 5 marks. More than 1 minute over the allotted time, loss of 10 marks. We abolished the Bahamas. Boys and girls, it's competition time. Once again, put your hands together as we prepare ourselves to welcome our participants this morning. Come on, put your hands together. Contestants, are you ready? Contestants, are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, let's get this going.
and atrocious murder occur without ceasing, causing a mournful, dreadful cloud to overshadow our beautiful country. Bullets are flying. People are dying. My Lord, families are crying. The guilty. It's my firm, unwavering, strong belief that the death penalty should not, I repeat, should not be abolished in the Bahamas. Madam Chair Lady, distinguished judges and other officials, proponents and opponents alike, administrators, teachers, and fellow citizens, good morning. Fellow Bohemians, you might ask what exactly is the death penalty in the Bahamas. Let me enlighten you. The death penalty until recently has been the mandatory sentence for murder in the Bahamas, death by hanging in our neck of the woods. However, and I quote, the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council has abolished the mandatory death sentence for those convicted of murder in the Bahamas. According to an article entitled, Privy Council abolishes mandatory death sentence. Even though it is no longer mandatory, it is still an avenue that must be explored. Unfortunately, distinguished judges, Amnesty International didn't suggest any other effective means of combating murder in the Bahamas. This is our country. Why listen to them? They call the death penalty a violation of the right to life. I pose this question, Madam Moderator. What about those who are now 6 feet under and death's cold embrace? They were murdered. Did they not also have a right to life? Distinguished judges, no matter what enters your ears here today, be mindful of these facts. By nature, the death penalty is effective when carried out in keeping with the law. The death penalty is not at all subjective because criminals are tried and convicted by a jury of their peers. If executed consistently, it will deter crime because the fear of the highest form of punishment will keep potential victims alive. Madam Moderator, the death penalty should not be abolished because the families of the victims can only begin their healing process once the murderer is put to death. In my opinion, the resumption of hanging after a moratorium of almost 12 years have done little to curb murderers in the Bahamas. Because of the legal system, lack of consistency, and the indecisiveness on the matter. Today, according to status, 28 prisoners are now on death row, living on taxpayers' money, while the victims' family wait for justice and their victims wait for the resurrection. Fellow Bohemians, there is no justice in this. According to an article, March 13, 2006, if judges hand down death sentences, the government will see to it that they are carried out. Said Attorney General Alison Maynard Dixon, January 28, 2006. Prime Minister Perry Christie has decided to bring back capital punishment and has received overwhelming public support and an exclusive street poll conducted by the Guardian. More than 80% of the people surveyed said they agreed with the Prime Minister that the mandatory death sentence should be reintroduced in the Bahamas. Fair-minded judges and Bohemians, I leave you to ponder this violent murder as I close. 16-year-old Donnell Cornville was murdered by 24-year-old Maxwell Tito, March 20th, 2002. Mrs. Cornville was lured from her home in the early morning hours of May 2nd, 2002. Her body bruised and burned and her skull crushed. Think about your 16-year-old daughter, sister, or niece. What should be done to this animal who has done this to them? Remember, the Bible says, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And God says it. We should believe it. Case closed. The problem should be solved. Therefore, it is more reasonable to utilize the death penalty than to abolish it. Again, I say, the death penalty should not be abolished in the Bahamas. Argument done, Madam Chair.
So sharing friends, distinguished guests, my worthy opponents, my colleagues, fellow speakers, a pleasant good morning. Good morning. Since its enactment in 1929, capital punishment in Bahamas was administered some 50 times. According to Battle 2000, capital punishment is the legal infliction of death as a penalty for violating criminal law. The form of execution practiced in the Bahamas, the enforcement of capital punishment can intimidate the offender and other people, murderers, from committing these crimes. Furthermore, expedient capital punishment is cost efficient, whereby taxpayer dollars would not be used to maintain murderers. Moreover, man's purpose in life is enshrined in God who gave the principle of capital punishment in Genesis chapter 9 verse 6, which is based upon the sanctity of life. Also intimidate capable murderers from committing murders because of fear of execution. For if the government of the Bahamas enforces the deterrent effect of execution, then the lives of innocent individuals would be saved. However, if the government abolishes the death penalty, innocent lives could possibly be sacrificed. Secondly, Madam Chairperson, with the abstinence of the death penalty, the convicted murderer would reasonably be sentenced to life in prison, which would be costly to taxpayers. The cost of guardianship consists of expenses such as room and board and health care. Presently, there are 28 convicted murderers on death row in the Bahamas, which is even more costly due to numerous appeals, which consumes time and money. It spends approximately $9,600 on an inmate per year, which would amount to $268,800 for the clear the life of another by premeditated or meditated murder. Once it is proven that a person is guilty without a shadow of a doubt, then that person should be executed. Whoso shedded man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, Madam Chairperson.
Should it be abolished in the Bahamas?
Association Vice President Joseph Zaga said, and I quote, "It has never been proven any place in the world that hanging or capital punishment is a deterrent to murder. That will be human. The Bahamas is a glass bowl and the world is looking in, watching this small, successful country. The death penalty should without a doubt be totally abolished and fully eradicated from the law books in our Bahama land. Madam Moderator, esteemed judges and officials, proponents and opponents of this most debatable issue, administrators, teachers, and fellow students, a pleasant good morning. The death penalty is no longer the mandatory punishment for murder in the Bahamas. There are options, but I am not here to discuss options. I am here to reveal the ugly, inhumane nature of the death penalty, because even though it is not mandatory, it can still be practiced. Thank God for bodies like Amnesty International, who are lobbying fully to stop out the death penalty. Fellow Bahamians, do you really want to know how inhumane and unfair the death penalty is? Consider this fact. According to an article entitled Urgent Action, May 8, 1999, Trevor Woods and Richard Fisher were hanged on the 16th of October, 1998, even though the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights had informed the government of the Bahamas that it would issue a decision on both cases within the next 2 weeks. The Bahamas should cease today and abandon state killings now. Esteemed gentlemen, did you know that the majority of the world countries no longer have to practice the death penalty and only a minority actually carry out execution? Tackle problems of law and order. But we must believe that the death penalty is by nature ineffective, subjective, and does not deter crime. On the contrary, it creates victims and demeans society as a whole. Let's face the fact that people, according to the International Treaties on Death Penalty and Human Rights, the resumption of opinion in March of 1996, after a moratorium of almost 12 years, has done little to curb murders in the Bahamas. Yes, you may argue, opponents, that it is in the law book. But the unfathomable fact is, and I dare any of you to say differently, that the law is not being carried out. Esteemed judges,
When was the last time someone was executed in the Bahamas? Can't remember, can you? Well, when was the last time someone was murdered in the Bahamas? I bet you can remember that. I stand side by side with the overseer of the United Christian Church, Bishop Albert Hepburn, when he said, and I quote, "If we are not going to enforce it, take it out of the book." Up to they are not omniscient, and sometimes innocent people are executed. Thank you.
Excuse me, Risha Bridgewater.
.com defines the death penalty or capital punishment, as some may call it, as the legal infliction of death as a consequence for violating serious criminal laws. Madam Moderator, Principal Mr. Forbes, honorable judges, distinguished guests, my most worthy opponents, teachers, students, a pleasant good morning. I believe that the death penalty is an important and very disputed aspect of our society. Law brings together the basic principles and purposes of society, including the recognition and protection of individual rights to life, liberty, and security of people and property. As the judge finds Lamont Taylor not guilty for the death of 17-year-old Jason Jones, a student at the C.D. Bethel Senior High School, his mother breaks out in a fit, screaming, "Oh Lord, why my child? Why you had to take my child? I pray that you keep burned in hell." Honorable judges, how would you feel if your child was wrongfully murdered and the killer was getting off scotch-free? In the words of Wesley Lowe, and I quote, "The recidivism rate for capital punishment is 0. No executed murderer has ever killed again." The support in an exclusive street poll conducted by The Guardian. More than 80% of people surveyed said that they agreed with Mr. Christie that the death penalty should be reintroduced in the Bahamas. I too agree with Mr. Christie. And as long as God blesses me with breath to breathe, I will continue to support capital punishment in this Bahama land. Death penalty self-evidently prevents more crimes because death is so much more fair than the mere restrictions of one's liberty. If the death penalty was abolished, the convicted murderer has the potential to escape or obtain bail and kill again. Honorable judges, the conviction of the murderer is just and right from my moral views. If you disagree, what do you suggest we do with our murderers? I say, let the punishment equal the offense. Thank you.
In your mind, Melissa goes out with Jennifer's boyfriend. Jennifer found out about it, and she decided to inform her friends and involve them in slapping up Melissa. They all wishfully intended for Melissa to fall, maybe to finish her off, or find it to be an easier way to tackle her. To their wish, Melissa fell, but unfortunately, she fell on a 2x4 piece of wood with sharp nails projecting and forcefully entering her head. Poor Melissa, this is her life. Like normal teenagers, they freaked out. They were petrified. And yes, my opponents, they even felt sorry for what had happened. The authorities found out about it. They tried the case. They came to a conclusion to execute them. From my view, the executors are just like the teenagers who willingly decide on their own to act without taking into any consideration of the possible outcomes. With their lives being taken away, they can no longer apologize and ask for forgiveness, first and foremost. Secondly, to the families who are experiencing bereavement. Thirdly, to the society whom they have offended. These teenagers were possibly over the ages of 18. They had their whole lives ahead of them, and to devour this will be morally wrong. Madam Moderator, highly esteemed judges, guests, my most worthy opponents, a pleasant good morning.
Good morning.
The moot for this competition is, should capital punishment be abolished in the Bahamas? I, Demetria Newton, propose that it should be abolished. The society, along with many other developed countries, now have the research, data, investigations to prove that capital punishment does not deter crime. Expert after expert have confirmed that capital punishment is not the right thing to do. If capital punishment is not working effectively, why go ahead with it? Sentenced to death by mistake, and because they were at the wrong place at the wrong time, they now have to pay for something that was wrongfully assumed of them. To play God. Who are we to take lives whom God put His breath in? What power and by whom is vested into us to make a legal infliction upon someone's life? Life is valuable and it cannot be replaced. So we must honor it, respect it, and do all possible to keep it. It is God's gift to earth. According to Leslie 22, the favor of the death penalty is a relic of barbarism. It is morally wrong. It does not act as a deterrent for crime. It is irreversible and can be inflicted upon people who are innocent. She further stated that it is more expensive than imprisonment and those who are convicted. She still feels sorry for what she did. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I present the case of Jennifer into your hands. If you were Jennifer's judge, would you allow Jennifer to continue this community service, or would you send her to her death? I leave you to decide. Thank you.
Hello? Oh, hi Jeff, how you doing? Shit? Yeah, I didn't get check out you last week. Yeah, that's stupid law they make out here. Yeah, he talked to me, yeah. Alright then, bye. According to statistical information retrieved from an NPR article called Crime Rates Up Over 2004, an expert in criminology estimated that a murder takes place every 7 days, while there's a rape every 2 days and a murder every day. My fellow Bohemians, the death penalty does not single out the worst offenders. Instead, it selects an arbitrary group based on such irrational factors: the area in which the crime was committed, the quality of the defense counsel, or the race or the dependent of victim. Honorable judges, distinguished guests, proponents and opponents alike, ladies, gentlemen, teachers, support staff, students, the following factors. Almost all defendants facing the death penalty cannot afford their own attorney. Hence, my fellow Bohemians, they are dependent on the quality of the lawyers assigned by the state, many of whom lack experience in capital cases or are so underpaid that they forget to investigate the case properly. The death penalty alone imposes an irrevocable sentence. Once an inmate is executed, nothing can be done to make amends if a mistake has been made. There is considerable evidence from an internet excerpt entitled 25 Years of Executions and 25 Years of Executions with Reasonable Doubts. It clearly business. On behalf of me, a recent study at Columbia University Law School found that 2/3 of all capital excerpt stated that Turk Bloodsworth was convicted and sentenced to death for the killing and murder and rape of a young girl. Listen, he was released after subsequent DNA testing confirmed his innocence. Ponder that, opponents. Ponder that. I think the death penalty should be abolished in the Bahamas. Thank you.
First one, top of the class. Loved by everyone. Hated by none. Shut down in the drive-by. Stay hydrated. Time for the next note. Family grief. Yet the gunman set to be released. Back in the bar, getting ready to strike again. Moderator, judges, teachers, students, birthday boys.
Parents of the dead Bishop Demetrius and Chantel Aubrey consciously await the decision from the jury in the case of Gervais Cummings versus the victims. After long hours of deliberation, the jury has found Mr. Cummings guilty and sentenced him to 20 years in prison. I'm ready for reporting next news. He charged with 20 years. Shouldn't he be granted the death penalty? Madam Moderator, honorable judges, fellow colleagues, students, and most pleasant good morning. The death penalty in the Bahamas should not, I repeat, should not be abolished. Firstly, honorable judges, since independence in the year 1973, there has been 16 death penalties carried out in the Bahamas. Daughters, the victim should then be victimized. Yes, I know. Some people think it's an eye for an eye. Please, cliche, it is just plain justice. In the given scenario, Mr. Cummings has been sentenced to a petty 20 years for the murder of I repeat, 2 persons. Criminals would intentionally do their crime, spend their time, and repeat the process. Because to them it seems like free living quarters, free food, and no work at all play. It sounds like a party to me. If they clearly understand the consequences of these crimes, it decreases the amount by thousands. Moreover, the peace and tranquility of our society will be interrupted by the entrance of these predators back into our community to mix and mingle with us. As I conclude, as said by our very own Prime Minister, Honorable Perry G. Christie, and I quote, the brothers and sisters who do believe in capital punishment, I'm going to fight with them, end quote. The penalty guarantees justice for victims. It balances the offense and the penalty. If the of it being overcrowded, they continue to fight. Why should they stop when homecoming is almost in sight? Incarcerate for a couple of years, so they continue to use their might. Most honorable judges, Madam Moderator, fellow colleagues and friends, we have reached our verdict in the case of Raheem versus the abolishment of the death penalty in the Bahamas, and we hereby find the defendant guilty and sentenced to the death. I hereby rest my case. It was nearing the end of Mr. John Evans' last day on death row. He spent most of his days with his minister and fellowship, praying and talking about what was to come. At 8:20, Mr. John Evans left his cell and walked down the long hall to the execution room and was strapped to the left chair. At 8:30, the first jolt of 1,900 volts passed through the It lasted 30 seconds. Sparks and flames erupted from the track, holding him in place. A lump of flesh and clothing penetrated his doctors examined his death. The electrode was refastened, and again Mr. Evans was given another 30-second jolt. Again, Mr. Evans. I extend my respect to you. My proceedings Andros, President. Good morning.
Dino peanut cheese.
Thank you.